I, 32, female, got married to my husband, 34, male, about a year ago, and recently we celebrated our 1 year anniversary by throwing a party for our friends and family. On the day of the party, though, which was just a few days back, my mother-in-law and I got into a really bad fight, and I'm still trying to figure out if I was the bad guy in that or not, which is what she believes. But my husband doesn't feel that way and does not think that I need to apologize to her. Basically, in the past 4 years, which is how long my husband and I have been together, my mother-in-law has never really been nice to me. Let's call the woman Kelly. So Kelly, for whatever reason, has been bitter all her life. And even my husband thinks that she would have been a much better mother if she wasn't so resentful and hateful all the time. He told me that he used to blame her and hate her until he grew older, and one of his cousins told him all about his family, how problematic his parents' marriage was. That cousin, in all probability, had most likely heard from his parents, and my husband would have doubted the credibility of it if he hadn't picked up on certain signs and certain conversations during fights between his parents. The situation was that my husband's father was actually in a relationship with Kelly's older sister first. They were supposed to get married, and they had even spoken to each other's families about it. And in the beginning, everything was going well, but unfortunately, Kelly's sister was infertile. Now, that was a huge problem with my father-in-law's family because his parents were desperate for an heir to their business. They wanted a grandchild, and more specifically, a grandson. If I That was the very reason why they had all these medical tests conducted before marriage, because they wanted to find out if anything was off before letting their son marry this girl. And as soon as they found out that Kelly's sister was not going to be able to give them a baby, they started trying to back out of the marriage. It was very complicated as well because Kelly's parents and my father-in-law's parents had been old friends and business associates as well. Like both of them came from old money and generational wealth kind of families, if you know what I mean. So they ran in the same circles, and Kelly's parents were pretty desperate to make sure that they were somehow linked to my father-in-law's family because they were a respectable family. And for them, getting a daughter married into that kind of family would be nothing less than an achievement. So after some deliberation, they decided they were going to talk about getting my father-in-law married to Kelly instead of her sister, which is just weird and disgusting because it's obviously not the same thing. But I guess to their parents it was. And from what I've been told, instead of declining, Kelly herself was pretty excited to get married into that family because she had apparently always had a bit of a crush. And on top of that, she was not going to pass up on a chance to get married and settle down early. And she was not infertile, so her in-laws didn't have a problem with accepting her into the family. At first, my father-in-law resisted, but I guess with time, he couldn't hold back his parents anymore and agreed to get married to Kelly, and that was that. On top of this, Kelly's sister also decided to leave the country because she couldn't see all of this unfolding right in front of her and tolerate it, understandably. So she left, and since then, she's not been in touch with her sister, obviously. Kelly never even acknowledged that she has a sister, and my husband probably would have never even found out about it unless he had that conversation with his cousin. After their marriage, Kelly had 2 kids with my father-in-law, my husband being born a little after a year since their marriage, and then 2 years later, his brother was born, and finally, 6 years after my husband was born, his sister was born. And when he was 6 years old, his parents' marriage started getting worse. They were never very affectionate, but all of a sudden they were sleeping in different rooms, not talking to each other. And worst of all, his mother seemed to be crying all the time. His father was also very stoic, and their parents hardly interacted with each other or even them they were pretty much the kids that were left with the nannies or to their own devices. Naturally, my husband remembers that time of his life pretty well, and later on, from his cousin, he found out that that was around the time his mother had found out his father had been cheating on her with her sister. Kelly's sister had left the country, started her life again in Australia, and I guess my father-in-law had kept tabs on her, so when he had the opportunity to go to Australia for a conference, he took it up immediately. There, over the course of a couple of weeks, they reconnected and they ended up sleeping together. And when he came back home, he confessed to his wife, and that was that. She was obviously miserable, even though she didn't love him that much, and that's where an extremely expensive, high-value diamond bracelet comes into play. And no, that was not a gift from her husband. That was a gift that Kelly received from her in-laws to make sure that she doesn't abandon her family out of anger or anything. When she told them that her husband had been cheating, her in-laws were obviously very upset with their son, and they promised her that they would speak to him and get Kelly's sister out of his head once and for all. Or at least make sure that she wouldn't find out about any more affairs that he planned on having with her in the future, because obviously they couldn't realistically have any sort of control over their grown son, since he had already taken over the company and they couldn't threaten him anymore. So anyway, just to placate her, her in-laws gifted her with that diamond bracelet, and she decided to turn it into a family heirloom. And I'm the one who ended up inheriting it when I got married. Let me just make it clear. If you guys think that she gave it to me because she must have loved me a little, then you guys are completely wrong. The only reason that I was the one to receive it was because I'm her oldest daughter-in-law, the partner of her oldest son, and she had already made up her mind that she was going to hold up all the archaic patriarchal values that she inherited from her in-laws, and always prioritize the eldest son over all the other kids. And why? Just because he was the oldest and because he was a man. My husband obviously never stood for it. He tried to get his mother to be equal to his younger brother and sister, but it never mattered to her, and trust me, it was extremely painful for her to give that gift to me because it was important to her. In spite of his ridiculously disgusting history, she probably wanted to keep it with herself, but I don't know. These rich families are complicated. Anyway, coming to why it was so difficult for her to give it to me and to accept me as her daughter-in-law. It was simply because I did not come from the kind of rich family that she and her husband had come from. I come from a normal family, to be very honest. My parents are normal folks. They run a bakery business. I've had a very ordinary childhood and education, nothing too fancy. I myself am a veterinarian and I'm doing well for myself, so I'm definitely not getting married to my husband for money, which is what my mother-in-law seems to believe. Kelly has never been able to wrap her head around the fact that her favorite child decided to fall for nobody like me. And she's never let me forget it either. She's always taken digs at me, and my husband has always defended me, but unfortunately, we've never exactly been able to cut her out of our lives. However, now we think we might have to because things kind of got out of hand at the party and we don't see our relationship going back to normal. Or whatever normal used to be for us, because the problem is that I had finally had enough of her unnecessary digs and sneaky remarks about me. And finally, on the day of the party, I decided to hit back by spilling everything that I knew about her marriage and that problematic necklace, simply because she had decided to pick on me by bringing up the fact that I had chosen not to wear it even though it had been with me for almost a year. And she tried to make it seem like I was just insecure because I wouldn't be able to pull it off, given my background. And she was insulting my financial status and looking at my parents while doing it, which is just unacceptable. So I finally let it slip. Already in the beginning, when she had first given me that gift, around the time of my wedding. She had said a lot of things about it. She had made it seem like I would not be confident enough or pretty enough to pull it off. She made it sound like somebody like me, coming from my background, would not be used to such expensive gifts. So it was probably a big deal for me. And she took a lot of little jabs at me, and I did not reply to any of them because I didn't want to dignify any of it with the response. But this time, my parents were right there in front of me. I could not let this go, so I decided to take a little jab at her as well. And I started explaining that the real reason I didn't wear that bracelet very often was because of the history associated with it. I did not want to wear something like that because I was uncomfortable with the idea of it. While I was sharing the story, she was just going red in the face, and by the time I was done, I knew that I had hit a nerve. Because she looked very upset. And as soon as I was done with the story, everybody started looking at each other, not knowing how to say it. She was infuriated. She was like, how dare I say things like this? How dare I come up with such blatant lies about her? But her face made it very clear that I was telling the truth, and she was only getting defensive. I did not reply to her. I only remained passive. And she raged on for a couple of minutes before leaving in a huff. She probably thought that her son was going to chase after her, or at least one of her kids was going to come after her. But nobody bothered. Instead, we were just awkward for a couple of minutes, but then we went back to the party. What else were we supposed to do? So anyway, that was what happened at the party, and now she's demanding an apology for all of it, claiming that not only did I publicly humiliate her, I ruined the reputation of the entire family, and I definitely need to apologize for it. And the funny thing is, my husband, who's obviously a big part of the family, doesn't feel that way. She's claiming that all of it is a lie, that these are things that people around her have made up because they want to gossip amongst themselves, since they are all jealous of her. But I don't know. This feels like a pretty detailed piece of gossip, if you ask me. Anyway, the bottom line is, I just said what I felt like at that moment. I don't think that I need to apologize to her. Yes, it wasn't probably good for the reputation of the family, and because I said it publicly, people definitely must be gossiping, and that is the only part that I feel a bit iffy about, because it's not something I intended to happen, but collateral damage. Anyway, what do you guys think? Should I apologize to my mother-in-law? AITA for publicly insulting her after she kept taking jabs at me? Edit. Hi, so a lot of people kept asking about my father-in-law and where he was in all of this, and well, he passed away a couple of years back, so he's not part of this, and I've just met him once. He did seem to be miserable in his marriage, which is a huge part of the reason why I believe that all these stories must have been true. Also because I really cannot imagine any human being who is not totally crazy being happy with somebody like Kelly. She herself is not happy. And I think she hates people around her being happier than her. So she makes it the goal of her life to make people as miserable as possible. At least that's what it seems like so far. As for my husband's siblings and their reaction to all of this, they don't really seem to care. My husband has spoken to them, and they think that while it was a bit shocking to hear me lay it all out in public, they can't exactly say anything against me because at the end of the day, I have put up with Kelly for long enough. And I have done it silently, so I definitely had the right to lash out at her, and if it meant me bringing up things that are so well buried in our family, then so be it. I think that's a pretty balanced and nuanced take, and so it works for me. And to be very honest, as long as people are not expecting me to apologize to Kelly, I'm good. The only person so far who actually genuinely believes that I owe her a huge apology herself, and she's pretty delusional, so I'm not taking that seriously. Anyway, she's still texting us and demanding that I apologize publicly, even though she's not been getting any sort of response from us. I just hope she takes the hint and leaves us alone. Update 1. Hey, so it's been 2 weeks since the day of the party and 2 weeks since the incident itself. And like I said, Kelly had been bothering my husband constantly, texting him about me, telling him that I need to apologize to her. It got to a point where my husband finally felt that he couldn't keep up with this and he needed to block her because she was distracting him from work. He couldn't let that go on, so he decided to block her, and that's a big thing because even though he has had fights with his mother in the past, he has never blocked her. The only reason is that even when they're fighting, he doesn't want to totally abandon her. He wants himself to be reachable even when they are in a fight. However, this time he just couldn't hold himself back, and so she got blocked. And I think she lost her mind after that because then she decided to show up at his workplace. It was all very humiliating for him because obviously the security staff and the receptionist didn't think much of it when she showed up and didn't try to stop her or anything because she was quite a frequent visitor and she was the wife of the ex-CEO and founder and a shareholder. So why would they even try to stop her? But then once she was inside, she decided to start screaming for him, demanding that he come out of his office immediately and speak to her. And she was not going to be disrespected like this. And basically, she was just creating a huge scene. It was very insulting because he was the boss there. And this was no way to speak to him. Anyway, he did not come out of the office, and instead he just called the security staff to take his mother away. Even then, it was pretty complicated because she was a respectable woman, not just some hooligan who had shown up. So even the security staff knew exactly how to deal with this. And she kept telling them that she would get them fired, so they were scared of her as well because, well, she was their boss's mother. Anyway, after some insistence and a guarantee that they would not be getting fired for any of this, the security staff were finally able to drag her away, and that was the end of the little farce. But the damage had already been done. Most people on his floor had seen this unfold, and the ones who hadn't had heard about it. So naturally, my husband is in a very awkward position right now. And I really feel bad for him because he doesn't deserve this. He's very serious about his work. He treats his employees well. And yet his mother couldn't let him have that love and respect and had to make him the subject of gossip. Anyway, right now, he's considering buying out his mother and basically making sure that she's not a shareholder anymore so that he doesn't have anything to do with her again, at least in the workplace. He's doing the decent thing because she doesn't have anything else to go on, and I really admire him for that because if I was in his place, I would not be the bigger person. I would be really upset and I would be looking for ways to get back at my mother, but I guess it's a lucky thing she's not my mom, since if she had been, she would have been in for some nasty surprises if she tried to pull up something like this. But I guess that's just my hatred against her speaking because I really don't like her. And after this little stunt that she pulled, I really don't think I can ever bring myself to forgive her. And we really don't think that we can reconcile with her because she has just effectively ruined all her chances of getting back in our good books at any point in time. And honestly, that's just her loss because we are the only people who actually put up with her. Since my husband's siblings don't even pretend to like her, they hardly ever invite her to things. They don't even talk to her much, and she seems to be fine with it because, like I said, she has her favorites. And that happens to be my husband, and as long as he's in her life, she doesn't care about other people. But now that she's losing him, I really wonder how she's going to deal with that. First and foremost, she's probably going to blame me for all of it. I can already see that coming, but I don't really care because she needs to know she has ruined her own relationship with her son. And she can blame as many people as she would like to. It's not going to change the facts. And speaking of my husband's siblings, we even discussed the incident at work with them, and they were appalled. They said that we should speak to a lawyer as soon as possible and get a restraining order against her because this is just not okay. To be fair, they do have a point. We have been considering it because She really did cross the line, and even though she did not specifically threaten us or claim that she was going to hurt or harm us, it's still pretty inconvenient. We don't like this. We don't want to repeat this, especially at my workplace because I deal with animals and we need a calm and quiet environment for them. I wouldn't want my friends to have to deal with a crazy weirdo like her. So we have been considering it, and we might speak to a lawyer and try to get a protective order against her because I think, given how things are going with her, we can't be too careful. And when she finds out that her son plans on buying her out of the business to cut her off entirely, she's probably going to be even more unhappy. So I think it's a valid reason for us to look into a restraining order right about now. Update 2. So it's been 3 months since my previous update, and things have been pretty intense. First things first, let me just tell you guys that after a lot of drama, my husband finally was able to buy his mother out of the business, and now she's no longer a shareholder in the company. But she did get a good deal, and I think she should just appreciate that. She can live off of that money for the rest of her life. But unfortunately, it's going to be a life where none of her children are speaking to her because of the kind of drama that she has stirred up. I don't think anybody in their right mind would want to interact with her after this. It's a miracle that my husband continued to be fair with her, even while she was bad-mouthing him to everybody that would listen. Honestly, like I said, he's a much bigger man than I am, because I would never forgive this or let this go. At first, she was not even ready to sell her shares. And my husband said that this could turn ugly if she doesn't want more trouble for herself. Then she should just do as she's being told because he doesn't want to get into all this. He doesn't want to hurt her, and he doesn't want to be hurt by her anymore because he thinks there's been enough of that. They had a long fight, and throughout that duration, she just kept posting passive-aggressive things against her son on Facebook. Everybody saw that, and then in some posts, she even named and shamed him. And of course, like I had predicted already, she blamed me for all of this, and even though she did not use my name in any of her posts, it was very evident that she was talking about me. She accused me of trying to alienate her son from his family. She said that I was a jealous, insecure woman, and she claimed I would never be happy and never let anybody else be happy, and I think that's really weird for her to say because, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't ring true to me. But it definitely rings true for her. Anyway, I do not let any of that bother me because I knew that she was just projecting, and none of this is true. I just felt bad for my husband because he was quite affected through all of this. But he stayed strong for both of us, and we got through it somehow. And then eventually, a couple of weeks ago, she was finally bought out. She gave in after a lot of deliberation and drama, and since then we've had nothing to do with her. But I have heard from the rest of the family that she has to continue to post against us. She's claiming that we have mentally broken her down, trying to gain as much sympathy as she can, and not only us, she's been calling out her other children for neglecting her as well. It's sad because she should know that her other children really don't care. And I think it's fair enough because she has never cared about them. She never put them first. She never treated them as a priority. So why should they care about her now? Doesn't seem like a fair expectation to have from them. And it's a good thing that my husband's siblings are so nonchalant about the whole thing. They are fully aware of what their mother has been saying about them. They just don't care at all. And it hasn't affected them in no way whatsoever because their mother was never a big part of their lives in the beginning. She never tried to be part of their lives at all. And now they're totally fine with or without her. In fact, my brother-in-law has gone to the extent of saying that she's only digging her own grave at this point by trying to make everybody seem like the bad guy. Because at the end of the day, when she's going to need people, nobody's going to be there for her. And that's true, to be very honest, because it's not like she's getting any younger, and she's definitely going to need help at some point. But then who's going to be there for her? Certainly not any of the people who have been giving her sympathy online. She's definitely going to have to count on her children, and I'm sure that they are human enough to have to be there for her, but she's going to be the one who ends up feeling smaller. It's just sad what she's doing with her life. It's pathetic how bitter and resentful people can be towards their own children through no fault of their own. My husband and his siblings are wonderful people, and they definitely deserved a good childhood and an even better mother. Truth be told, I still struggle to figure out how a mother like that was able to raise such good children. I guess that will always remain a mystery. Anyway, my point is that everybody has basically cut her off now, and honestly, we are certainly much happier for it. Update 3. Okay, so it's been a year and a half since my previous update, and a couple of weeks ago my husband and I found out that we were expecting a child. We hadn't exactly been trying, so this came as a nice little surprise, and we are keeping the baby because I think it's about time. Both of us are in a comfortable place, and I think it's the right time to have a baby. Obviously, we are thrilled, and the people around us are equally happy, if not more. My parents have been coming over every weekend, and even on certain weekdays as soon as they have the time. My husband's siblings have also been visiting more frequently, and everybody seems to be very happy. We made the announcement on social media a couple of days back, and even though we had had absolutely zero contact with Kelly in the past couple of years, especially after whatever happened, she did have something to say, of course. She did not reach out to us or anything, but she must have heard from some relatives that we were having a baby because she posted about it on her Facebook, saying that she was very happy that she was going to have her first grandchild, even though she was probably not going to be allowed to meet us or the child. But she would always make sure that the child had her good wishes and blessings, even from a distance, because at the end of the day, the child had done nothing wrong, and the only problem is that the child will have a mother like me, who has already led the child's father astray and alienated him from his family. And in all probability, I won't be able to do any good for my child either, so the baby will obviously need all the blessings to negate the negative impact that I will have on him. Somebody sent us a screenshot of that post, and honestly, I wish I could say that I was upset, but it was just hilarious how hard she was trying even now. Nobody speaks to her anymore, but even then her arrogance is intact, and, well, I applaud that. Anyway, doesn't matter what she says because we are happy, and that's all that matters. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.